Hello again. Thank you for tuning in to the Julixa Media Podcast. I'm your host, Julixa Newman. Today we have the pleasure of chatting with Daniela de la Piedra from Everyday Daniela. Thank you for joining us, Daniela.
Thank you, Julixa, so much for having me here. It's a pleasure and an honor.
Now, I did my homework on you, and that's why I had to invite you on. I read your story, and it was quite unique. So tell us about your journey and what inspired you to create Everyday Daniela.
Yes, so it's been quite the journey, as you said. And what's interesting is that I could have never planned for this. Steve Jobs says that things make sense looking backwards when you connect the dots backwards. And so it does make sense backwards, but I could have never planned for this. And so the catalyst that led me to creating Everyday Daniela professional coaching services was the pandemic. So I had been working as an attorney at that time and during the pandemic for about 12 years. And when the pandemic happened and everything stopped and we started working from home and my kids and my husband were there, I just realized that life was going really fast and I had no idea what had been happening. I started to notice that my daughter at the time was 4, and I realized that I didn't understand like the thoughts that she was having. And I realized I hadn't been really paying attention to these new thoughts that she was forming as a 4-year-old. And it made me really sad. I also realized that my husband and I were just two passing ships in the night before the pandemic. I mean, we never saw each other. And when we did, it was for logistics. And, there really was no downtime. And so the pandemic for me became a time of real reflection. It was obviously a very scary and uncertain time, but I kind of saw that there were two groups of people. There were the people who were very nervous and very scared and very angry. And then there was another group of people that sort of just accepted what we were in and tried to make the best out of it and finding the positive and the possibilities. And that's where I was. I was trying to find the possibilities from that. But as time went on during the pandemic, I thought to myself, I don't think that I can go back to life as it was, because I started practicing law when I was single. I had no kids. I lived near the city. I practiced in Washington, D.C. And 12 years later, I was now married, had 2 small kids, lived a little bit further out from the city. And I started to think, is this really like what I want the rest of my life to look like?
Is this life? Is this, am I at the top of it all?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I've questioned that several times, and during the pandemic, the same thing happens to a lot of my friends. I've been working from home for 15 years.
Okay.
I follow you. I'm like, okay, this woman she's getting like the work-life balance. So I'm always like following your posts on Instagram, going, okay, yeah, no, maybe I do need to take it a step back. Maybe I do need to like stop and smell the roses, because sometimes you're so infatuated with, this is the position that I have, this is how well my company's doing, that I stopped being, for several years, I stopped being, just Julixa and just mom. I was the CEO of Stuff for Multiples. I started my own marketing firm. I was mom, the entrepreneur, not mom, the one that you want to sit down with. Not mom, the one that, is actually looking at you during dinner.
Right. Exactly. Not the mom that's present in the moment and not distracted by everything else, whether it's like in your head or the emails or the phone or whatever. So yeah, I mean, it was a real moment of reflection of, I've reached like great success in my career. And is this it? Like, where do I go from here? And so I did work with a coach myself and really did a lot of work to get clear on what my current values were, like who was I today and how was I going to align a way of living with, that honored who I am today and what I really want out of life. And what I really wanted was to be present for my kids and my husband. And myself, and also doing something that was a little bit different. I mean, being a litigator is a lot of hard work. You're in a lot of tense adversarial energy a lot of the time. I also worked with low income seniors. And so, as rewarding as it was, I was burned out. I think
Yeah.
there was some secondary trauma. And so I shifted into a different helping modality with coaching.
Okay. So one day you got up and you're like, I don't think I want to do the legal thing anymore. How did you tell your husband all of a sudden, guess what? I
Yeah.
think that I'm taking another route. I'm
Hmm.
not happy what I'm doing. I may be successful and I'm successful in everyone else's eyes. You
Hmm.
know, I'm a Latina attorney in the DC area. Like
Right.
you have it going on to going, I want to start my own business.
Hmm. Yeah, that was also a journey too. So the other part of this that really opened up my eyes to having a business where you are making sales, because I was in a nonprofit. So, I didn't charge for services. I had a salary, but I did not charge my clients. I did not
Right.
market. It was a 9 to 5. I just showed up to work. Um, but I did actually right before the pandemic, I started an online company and just selling products. And I saw that that was working. It was
Right.
creating income. It was a lot of fun. I was doing a lot of personal development through that opportunity as well. And my husband, actually, when we first started dating, he told me that I should go into sales. And I looked at him like he had 3 heads. Like, I am not a
Right.
salesperson. I do not do sales. Like, that is ridiculous. And now look at me. I have a business. So as that online company became really successful and really gave me like a creative outlet during the pandemic that was a little bit tense and sometimes got, kind of boring. Like, you were stuck at home with the same people,
Right.
right? It really opened up the door to a conversation of what are we going to do when this is all over? And I'm and he saw, we were at home. He saw how burned out I was,
Yes.
and he would hear me complaining about certain things. And so it was a very natural conversation, and he was very supportive from the beginning.
Very nice. Now, what are the most common challenges you see professional women, just as yourself, facing when trying to balance work and home life? Now that the pandemic is, it's gone. Now
Mhm.
people are going back into the office. What are you seeing is happening now?
I think what's happening is that people are still reflecting on, you know, am I okay going back to what I
Right.
used to know, right? Like, you cannot unsee what you saw during the pandemic. So if you were able to work from home and you have kids, you were able to be more present for them. You weren't rushing out at, 6:30 in the morning to make it to before care at 7 a.m. to sit in traffic for 2 hours, right?
Right.
And like, now, yeah, it's horrible. And
The
that's the
rat
reality
race.
for so many people. It's the rat race. And that's exactly how I describe it. Like, people are now back in the rat race. They got in a moment to sort of step off the hamster wheel in a way, not completely. And so a lot of people reach out to me to help them recalibrate, sort of how I did during the pandemic. They want to recalibrate. And so they recognize that the job that they're in is maybe boring. They're not inspired to go to work. Um, they want something else out of life, and this job is not going to allow them to do that. So I think what my clients and people that come to me really want is to find a job that fits their life rather
Right.
than trying to fit their life into a job.
Which is the opposite of what most people
Yep.
even consider.
Yep.
Right? That's amazing. So how do you tailor your coaching or your
Yeah.
guidance to accommodate everyone's unique needs? Like for
Mm-hmm.
me, example, I work a lot of hours. I work from home. I have my home office. I close the door. I during the pandemic, I got into cooking, which
Okay.
I was a complete failure at before the pandemic. Yeah, I was taking like little YouTube classes, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, hold on a second, I kind of like this.
Yeah.
And that shifted my day. I went from someone who was, going, hey guys, Chinese or Italian today, to going, okay, well, today I've got this on the schedule for work, and I
Mm-hmm.
got to defrost some ground meat because I'm
Yeah.
going to, I'm going to make a new dish. And
Yeah.
that to me was like my little bit of happiness. I got to
Yep.
spend time with the children during the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
They were obviously doing online schooling, which was challenging for many homes. Like I
Yes.
would talk to some of my friends and they'd be like, my kid was supposed to start kindergarten. How do you keep a kindergarten
That's
in
so
front
hard.
of the camera for so long makes no sense.
Yeah.
Like the whole thing was just throw the whole thing out. I'm like,
It
oh
was
my
a
God.
it was an awful experiment, and some of it was successful and some of it was not.
Yeah. So do you
Yeah.
find that you have to tailor your coaching? I know you give
Mhm.
30-minute free consults.
Yes.
I'm telling you, I've done my homework.
Mhm.
Um, do you have to sit back sometimes and go, hold on a second, this client doesn't need XYZ, they need ABC?
Yes. So at Everyday Daniela, we take a customized approach for all clients. So I have an idea of what somebody may need based on that 30-minute consultation that we've had. But it's always tailored. So coaching, the way I was trained in coaching and the way I do my coaching is I follow my client. So I
Okay.
believe that my client is the expert of their own life. And it is just my job to help them peel the layers of their own unique onion to get to the answers that they already have inside of them, but that they cannot hear or see because of all the stuff and the noise happening. So, what I do typically do is start with an assessment that I'm certified to give. It's called the Energy Leadership Index Assessment. It's an attitudinal assessment. It's an amazing one. And it really just shows you your energy and not like in a woo woo way, but like where your energy is at in terms of perspective and in terms of is it energy that serves you or not? So
Right.
how do you view the world on a good day, and how do you get triggered and view the world when you're under stress? And so that starts to give you awareness of where you are. Um,
Right.
so we start with that, and then that also allows me to introduce a framework that I use and some vocabulary that's very specific to that framework. And so now we have a common language and a tool that we can use throughout our coaching sessions. But it's very customized. And another thing that we'll do also in the beginning is a values assessment. So getting really clear on what each client's values are. Most people, don't take the time to think about like, what do I really value in life?
Right.
And then am I really living those values, right? Like if I really value flexibility today, but I'm gone from the house from 6:30 to 7 every day, like
Right.
is that really me being flexible? No, it's not. So yeah, so there are some things that in my coaching I do with everyone, but after that it's a very organic approach, and I just take the client where they are, depending on what their goals are.
Have you ever come across a client who says, okay, Daniela, this is my problem. This is
Mhm.
what I need help with. And then when after the assessment, after you start talking to this person, you're like, that's not your problem.
Yeah.
Does that happen often?
Yeah, so it can start to unravel a little bit, and you start to realize that like I've had people come to me with one goal, but they come to realize that the reason why they can't get to that goal is because there are other mini goals in
Right.
between that haven't been identified and obviously haven't been reached, because if you're not aware that you need to like address something, you're not going to address it. So yeah, sometimes, I mean, I'm thinking of like one specific client in particular. I mean, she came to me for something so specific, and I actually don't think we ever like got to it necessarily, because there were other
Wow.
things we needed to address. And a lot of them, I know we're going to talk about them, but a lot of them for her was like self-care and finding balance in her life first. Like there are building blocks in certain goals that we want to reach. So yeah, I mean, and it's like my clients when I was an attorney, they would come to me with one issue and I'd realize that there were actually like 5 legal issues.
Yeah. Or they'd come in saying that they're innocent and they're really not.
Yeah.
Let's talk about self-care. Now, you did
Hmm.
mention self-care. What's the approach of helping women actually say, you know what, I need a little bit of me time? Because it's,
Yeah.
it's very hard, especially when you have little ones.
Hmm.
I have, 5 children, including a
Hmm.
stepchild who's turning 13. Go save us.
Hmm.
Um, and it's really hard. Like it's gotten to the point sometimes, and I think a lot of women can relate, where I'm like, okay, self-care. I want to go get a manicure. And then I'm
Hmm.
like, that's an hour of my
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
where I'm just sitting there,
Feel
not doing
you.
anything for anyone. I don't
Mhm.
have time for this.
Yeah.
How important is self-care?
Yeah. So self-care is extremely important. We cannot give from an empty cup.
Right.
Um, and I actually, this is one of the topics that I love to talk with my clients about, and I do workshops on, is figuring out what routines and habits you can start to develop and implement and become consistent with, so that you can start to have that self-care. And what self-care really is you re-energizing yourself based on what you enjoy and what you like, not based on somebody else. So I have a client who she's an entrepreneur, and so she came to me for coaching to help her with mindset and goal setting, and helping her sort of get organized. And she got to the point where, so we uncovered a lot of things with her, like helping her say no, helping her realize who she really wanted to work with. Um, a lot of my clients are people pleasers. And so like making sure that she was honoring herself and her boundaries. But then it got to a point where she was like, Daniela, I don't want to work anymore. And like she was set for the year. Like she had her contract, she was set.
Right.
And I said, if you really can take a break, like go for it. And so we took a break on coaching. And then when we reconvened months later, she came back, we meet on Zoom, and she was just a totally different person. And I said, what changed? What changed was that she rested without guilt.
Wow.
And that's what we don't do. We rest with guilt. We rest, like we go to the manicure and we think, okay, I should be doing this. I should be doing
Right.
that. I should not be sitting here for an hour doing nothing, not
And
quote
then you
unquote,
beat
nothing,
yourself up.
right?
When you get home, you're like, okay, well,
Yeah,
I just messed up a whole hour. Now I got to cook. Now I got to clean. Now I got to,
right,
check the girls out.
right.
It's crazy.
Yeah. So that's anytime that you are choosing to do something for yourself, to re-energize yourself, to fill up your cup, we cannot do it with guilt,
Hmm.
because the guilt completely sabotages what we're actually trying to do. Guilt depletes you. So it
Right.
makes no sense to do something to, fill your cup when you're then depleting yourself with guilt.
Now you do life coaching and you do business coaching, from what I hear.
So yeah, so my coaching is it's so who I coach are professional women, um, driven women who either are in a 9 to 5 or are in a 9 to 5 with a side business. And then I do
Right.
have some clients who are full-time entrepreneurs as well.
Right. And you help them set goals for their business and try to reach those goals. I'm going to give your contact information out to a lot of people because, I have a lot of meetings with other female entrepreneurs or
Mm-hmm.
other female professionals that, there's just certain things they don't like doing. Like you said, that
Yeah.
one client doesn't like saying no. I
Mm-hmm.
know another friend of mine who has a very successful business, and she gets the chills every time she has to charge someone or send
Mm.
someone an invoice where
Oh, that is such a good one.
this is so unique to women to be like, okay,
Yeah.
well, this was how much I quoted. Your invoice is 30 days late. What are we going to
Mm-hmm.
do now? And, you know, they're very passive aggressive when it comes to that. And I've
Yeah.
noticed that men are like, hey, you're 30 days late.
Yep.
There's going to
Yeah.
be there's going to be a late fee if you don't pay within like the
Mm-hmm.
next 5 days. So I think that business coaching is something that a lot of entrepreneurs need, because you start a business and many times um, it really does consume you your whole life.
Yeah.
And you need someone to look at you from outside the box and
Mm-hmm.
say, hey, don't forget you, you
Exactly.
know?
Yeah. Yeah. And what you're talking about is a lot of mindset stuff. So like specifically that's money mindset. Like what is my role in asking you for money for a service I gave you? So that I can remember one client at least where we spoke about that. I mean, I've done my, I've attended other workshops too myself.
Right.
Money is energy, and it's just an exchange. You got my service and
Right.
you give me that, you give me money, and then I'm going to go get somebody else's service and I'm going to exchange money for that. So it's just energy that you're exchanging for something that you value. And so, but yes, there are a lot of blocks mental blocks when it comes to asking for money, when it comes to, another one that I help my clients with is like networking, finding people on LinkedIn and just sending them a message, asking them for 20 or 30 minutes of their time to, either pick their brain or do an informational interview. You know, just getting over that fear or that self-doubt, which you really combat with just doing. That's where confidence comes from. You get confidence by just doing. And so you just have to do it. So as a coach, I love to support my clients with those big, scary things, because on the other side, they are so empowered and just, so proud of themselves, and obviously then getting the results that they want.
Right. Like with me, I go to networking events all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I dread them right before walking in through the door. I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, what am I doing? What am I wearing? What am I going to tell these people?
Yeah.
Hi, my name's Julixa in a minute. I'm like, I
Mm-hmm.
look like a clown. I've even practiced it in the mirror. I'm like, my hair is okay. It's not too wild, because heaven forbid, I walk in
Mm-hmm.
with like curly, wild hair. They're going to
Mm-hmm.
assume, oh, she doesn't have her life together. I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it. I dread it to the very last minute. And then bam, I walk in, I say hi, and then I can, I can perform.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can network. I can help
Mm-hmm.
people, and
Right.
I find that sometimes by helping others, I'm helping myself, because I
Yeah.
like seeing them,
Exactly.
I like seeing other people succeed.
Mm-hmm.
What's your
Yeah.
favorite success story or transformation
Yeah.
from one of your clients, without
Oh,
like giving away, like, well, Anna, Anna Paris.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I will say this, coaching is confidential. So I
Yes.
never share clients' names or any personal identifying information, which is what makes coaching so special. Like I
Right.
always tell my clients, please show up as your authentic self. You can speak however you want. You can curse if you want, or if you don't want to. Like there's nothing. And I tell them there's really at this point nothing that you can tell me that's going to shock me, because
Right.
just because of my life experience, I've heard a lot of things and seen things. So um, but yeah, so one of my favorite success stories is a client that I had. She's an attorney, and she came to me because she had learned of me and my story, and she was like, "I need you, and I need you to
Hmm.
help me do what you did." And she didn't necessarily want to leave law. She
Hmm.
actually did not want to leave law, but what she had realized is that the field that she was practicing in, and the job that she thought was her dream job. And so now she was dealing with the disappointment that this is not what she wanted, because she was also in litigation, and so she had zero control of her schedule. She is married. So she didn't really see her husband too much, and then they were also thinking of starting a family, and she just knew that that was not going to be possible, working the hours that she was working and just being so tapped out all the time. So I worked with her for several months, and she got very clear on the kinds of jobs that she did want to look for and the kinds of jobs that she did not. So we did a whole exercise over weeks, and to really get clear on that. And then while we were doing that, I was also helping her develop um, some coping, but also just like some strategies for the workplace, like to make it more manageable for her, and finding ways like how she could be energized. So for you, for example, Julixa, you found that cooking during the pandemic was like your little window of hope and your little
Right.
window of inspiration amongst all the madness. So for her, it was like, what can you do at work that will help you feel, however it is that you want to feel? And of course, first getting clear, how do you want to feel at work?
Right.
Okay, so you want to feel like you're in control of your schedule. Okay, so what can you do to get in control of your schedule? So like one thing that she came up with, because of course I do give suggestions sometimes, but I really try to get my clients to come up with things themselves, because that's the most empowering. So she came up with this idea of having an emergency time slot on her calendar. So every day she had a 1 hour emergency time slot. And so she just knew that at some point during the day, it was 1 hour was going to get, tied up with an
Right.
emergency. And it was just like a floating thing. So she planned ahead for this emergency that she was going to have every day. And
Okay,
so
that
now,
might be genius. That might
yeah,
be genius.
it
Okay.
is. So now I've shared that strategy with other clients and they love it. So I would say that's one really cool thing that came out of that client. But what really is so cool is that she got very clear that she wanted to teach at, she was teaching as an adjunct at her law school. And she got really clear that she wanted to teach in this specific field that she works in at
Right.
that law school. And when she first started talking about it, she was like, this is so silly. And I don't know how this would ever happen. And in my head, I was like, oh no, girl, we're going to make this
You're
happen.
going to do this.
You
Yes.
just said this is what you want. And her energy totally shifted when she would talk about it. So I really helped her figure out, like, who can you talk to? What can you do? What do you have in your experience that really backs this up, that really, gives you leverage? And so she learned that the law school was going to be creating a new position because they were going to be creating a new curriculum for this specific field that she practices in.
Wow.
So yeah, so that's where we left it at when we were done coaching. And I checked in with her a few months later to see how she was doing. And she said, I stopped doing all of my job search stuff because I'm just waiting for them to post that job, like towards the end of the spring. And I said, okay, great. And we chatted a little bit more. About a week or two later, she emails me to tell me that she got the job.
Hell yeah. Oh, that's
It was not
awesome.
even posted. She did not apply. They just offered it to her. And I
That's
literally
amazing.
got the chills.
I have the chills now. I got the
Yeah.
goosebumps. Wow.
Because what happened is she put that intention out there.
Right.
She became so clear. And so this is what I also talk to my clients about, is that when you become so crystal clear that you want this thing, the universe will show you how to get it. Your brain will look for these things. So I have a funny story that I like to tell. Somehow my kids started seeing orange cars on the road, and they would say, like,
Orange
oh, there's an orange
cars.
car. There's an orange car. We see orange cars every day now. It's become like a family game in the car because our brain is looking for the orange cars.
Right.
The same way, when you have this big, gigantic, stretch goal, once you become really clear, your brain starts to look for all the ways that it can happen. And that's what happened with her. I mean, it was amazing. And then I was able to help her negotiate her contract, and she will have the work-life balance that she wants to now start a family and to actually have time to be with her husband.
I think very often we also confine ourselves by what we think the American standard is.
Yep.
I have friends that, are in their late 30s who they didn't get around to having children, and they want children now. And, they call me up dreading. They're like, can I borrow one of your kids for Thanksgiving? Because I don't want to tell my mother that,
Yeah.
I'm still not ready to have a child, because she looks at me and she's like, Mija, you're 37 years old. Like, what are you waiting for? Like,
yeah.
It's very interesting. I see that what you do with your clients is you're basically like the big sister that holds them by the hand.
Mm-hmm.
And if they fail to, or they get too scared to do something, you're like, no, Mija, do it.
Yes.
You do that now.
Yeah.
And that's got to be very fulfilling for you.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I mean, I've done crazy things in my life where I've reached, goals that I just thought were crazy, and I did them. I know it's possible.
Right.
And I see other women who do these things that also would be, seem crazy, and it's possible. So when someone tells me and I can see authentically that that is what they want to do, it's now my job, to make it happen, but it has to come through them. And so that is the cool part about coaching, is that I'm here as a support and accountability, and somebody who can suggest things based on my own experience, especially like when I work with attorneys. I think that's the most fun for me. I would say entrepreneurs too, though, but with attorneys, there's a lot that I can really relate with.
Right.
But yeah, when they start to sort of fall back or sort of take a step back, I'm there as accountability to tell them, no, this is what you told me.
Right.
And it's going to be okay. And let's, shift the perspective so that you can keep going towards this thing that, you said you wanted to have.
That's amazing. You're just do it. I'm going to push you, and you're just going to do this. So you decide you're going to start doing life coaching and business coaching. Next step would be, let me create a website, right?
Oh gosh,
Let
yeah.
me try to create content for people, because no matter
Mhm.
how wonderful you are, and I've learned this in many years, no matter how wonderful you are, no matter how well prepared you are, if you don't have a website and you're not out there in people's
Yeah.
faces, they're not going to find you.
Right.
It's just not going to happen. So, how do you decide on which topics to
Mhm.
cover on Everyday Daniela? Do you
Yeah.
have a specific like calendar for content creation? Do you come up with ideas from your own clients? And I'll
Mhm.
tell you one thing. Um, when I've created several twin products in my life.
Mhm.
I had a company, or I have a company that creates, distributes, manufactures twin products. And I remember that just by listening to other twin moms and the issues that they were having on the day to day, the problems with, being able to, keep their twins together, or that set the path to create products to help these women. They
Yeah.
gave me my answer.
Mhm.
So if you're listening to your clients, how else do you find content for your website?
Yeah. So first of all, the website. So when I was working with my coach, I said, "Do I really need a website?" She was like, "Yes, you need a website." So I created that website by myself. I am
Nice.
not a techie person whatsoever. So that was like a whole other ordeal. But when I was finished, I was very proud of myself. I will be creating. I actually hired someone to help me create a new website, but haven't gotten to doing all the content yet,
Right.
which will come. It's fine. But really, my content comes from my story, my own story, because it's a very relatable journey that a lot of women go through. And then also just listening to my clients. So sometimes I make content from what we discussed in a session. Obviously, I don't like name any names,
Right.
but um, I can see that, this person is dealing with this specific issue. So let's, write content around that issue. Just also listening to my own friends, right? My
Yeah.
own friends who are professional women, moms, wives, they're in the rat race. And so I'm just always listening to what people are saying. I read articles. There's this one author that I follow on the Wall Street Journal. And so I read her articles to see like what she's writing about, taking
Right.
ideas from what's really, on trend. Um, and yeah, just really sharing things that are very relatable to the average professional working woman who is like stuck in this rat race.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, I was also a stay-at-home mother for a couple years, and
Hmm.
that's when I decided I didn't. I love my children. I adore them. I
Hmm.
love being with them and talking to them. I don't want to be with them 24 hours a day.
Yeah, and that's
It
fine.
takes someone really special and really patient. And
Hmm.
I'm like, I'm a better me when I go out and I
Yep.
go to work and I come back and I'm like, okay, let's do this.
Yeah.
That's the highlight of my day, to see my children. But
Right.
when someone's in your face all the time, like,
Hmm.
I want this, I want that, and the tantrums, and you're like,
Yeah.
eh.
Oh, I feel you. Yeah, I mean, I know like there's a big push right now. A lot of people, at least I see that a lot of people do homeschooling. And I'm always like,
Yeah.
wow,
Mm-mm.
you get the gold star from me because I am not cut out for that.
No.
And that's fine. Everyone has their own gifts, their own strengths, different ways that they feel, purposeful. And for some women, they just have to be out of the house or maybe in the house, but working on
Right.
their own business, their own passion.
Now we have listeners right now that are probably
Mhm.
thinking, hold on a second. How does this work? So she talks about a 30-minute consult, and she makes an assessment. Then what? Is this a lifelong thing? Is this
Mhm.
something that I can talk to her and be like, can we give it a shot for a certain amount of time? Do you have certain packages? Like, do you have a
Mhm.
package maybe for business and one for life? Tell me about how it works.
Yeah, so the way it works is very simple. So I start off with doing a free 30-minute consultation call where we get really clear on what the challenges are, how it's impacting your life, what areas of your life, and what is that change that you're really looking for. And so we get clear on that and, see if this is a good fit, to work together. And then I have basically two packages. So I have a 3-month package that includes the ELI assessment, the Energy Leadership Index assessment, for somebody who not just, wants to create change, but really wants to dive deeper into understanding themselves and doing more personal development work, which I would say really just, it does lead to more sustainable and like larger transformation.
Right.
And that's a 3-month commitment. Some people aren't there. And so I have a 2-month package for people. And
So it's
so,
going to require what? A call once a week to
oh
chime
yes,
in?
so we meet once a week for an hour.
Okay.
And in between the calls, people have access to me via email, or like if they're on Instagram or Facebook, they can message me. So I do have clients who have messaged me in between sessions when something has come up, so we can do kind of like a little bit of coaching on the side in between sessions. I'm also on Instagram at Everyday Daniela Coaching, and that's Daniela with 1 L. And I also have a Facebook community. So for anyone who wants to sort of just like jump into the community, I have free resources in there. That group is called Change Becomes Her.
Okay.
And so that's also,
I love that name.
Thank you. So that also is a great way to start, sort of, if you're not really sure if you're ready for coaching or if coaching is for you, there's free resources in there. It's a great community. So yeah, there's different ways, to work with me. There's Instagram where you can just kind of check things out. There's the
Right.
Facebook group where there is more interaction, just because that's what the platform is like. And then if someone is really, ready to start and really make a change that they just cannot stop thinking about, that I would highly recommend scheduling a 30-minute consultation.
Okay. Quick question.
Yeah.
Are you solely focused on females?
So, you're supposed to have a niche and market
Right.
a specific thing. And I actually heard someone the other day say, you market a certain audience and a certain niche, but you can always have referrals, word of mouth on the side. So I
Exactly.
do market myself as a professional coach for women. However, I have coached men and I can coach men. You can ask my husband. I coach
Okay.
him all the time.
I'll have mine call yours. How about that?
Yeah, so one of my clients referred her husband to me, and he was very interested in doing the ELI assessment. So we just did the assessment. And then I had another client tell me, my husband really needs to meet with you. He really needs help in this area. And so we met, but he wasn't really ready for coaching. But, I have wives referring their husbands to me. So no, I can coach anyone, but really what I focus on is somebody who is at least a mid-level professional, mid and up, who is really looking to create a big change in their life, whether that is changing jobs, changing sectors, starting a business. I also really just love working with professional women who are trying to make sense of the madness. So helping them become more balanced in their life. So addressing their habits and routines at home, at work, and becoming more just, centered and grounded.
And you do have to be able and willing. Like it's like
Oh yeah.
if you're getting a life coach, if you're getting a business coach, if you're getting a physical coach, if a
Mm-hmm.
trainer,
Oh
you
yeah.
have to be willing to follow the steps.
Yes.
You might not just you have to trust the process. You have to
Yes.
say,
Trusting the
okay.
process is a big thing in my coaching.
And I
Yes.
think for females, it's even harder. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
but does she really know me?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think she really knows, my house situation, the things that go on in my home. Maybe you
Mm-hmm.
have husbands that are, not the best husbands in the world. Maybe you have the most amazing supportive husband,
Mm-hmm.
but you have to be able and willing to learn and grow with your life coach.
Yeah.
I mean, that's my that's my TED talk.
You have to be willing to do the work. I mean, at the end of
Yeah.
every session, my clients always have some kind of homework or call to action, or
Good.
something that they have committed to doing by the next time we meet. And so, but I always tell them, I am not your teacher. I am not going to reprimand you if you don't get it done. Sometimes not getting it done can be more insightful because I'm going to ask you what got in the way. And
Right.
sometimes figuring out what got in the way is the lesson that you need to learn rather than like having done the thing that you didn't do.
That's very interesting. And it's very true. I didn't think about that one.
Yeah.
Can you share a book, a movie, or a piece of art
Mhm.
that has had a significant impact on you and why it's meaningful?
The Alchemist. So I read The Alchemist by Paulo
That's
Coelho
a
when I was,
really long book.
no, that's the short one.
Is it?
That's the short one.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Because I think my future husband
Uh-huh.
was going through The Alchemist, and it was like this big. I might be
It might have been a collection of books. The
okay.
Alchemist is a short, quick read. I
Okay.
read it in 10th grade. I read it actually in one day when I was interning. So I was pre-med and I always wanted to be a doctor growing up. So there was one summer that I did an internship with the American Red Cross, and I was at Georgetown University working in a lab. And so we had a lot of downtime waiting for the lab results. So I read a lot and I played Tetris a lot. So I read The
I
Alchemist.
love Tetris.
I love Tetris. I would fall asleep seeing the pieces in my head.
Yes.
But I read The Alchemist in one day, and I've read it again since. I keep thinking I want to read it again. But it was, as a 10th grader, well, it was like the summer going into 11th grade. I think that was really my introduction to what we know as, like personal development, goal setting, like reaching for your dreams. It really left this impression on me that when you want something, it's yours, right? Like you do the work and the universe does the rest. My mom's always says el universo se encarga, which is what there's a quote in the book that says that something like, when you want something, the universe conspires to give it to you.
Right.
So I've always, thought about that book as, I think, the beginning of my sort of go-getter attitude, that I can have whatever I want as long as I'm showing up, in service of that goal every day. The universe is going to keep pushing me along.
That makes a lot of sense. Now you speak Spanish.
I do.
Um, you would offer your counseling in Spanish as well?
No. I don't, I will be honest. My husband has asked me, he's like, why don't you do coaching in Spanish? I mean, I can do it in Spanish. I just feel like to be the most effective, I feel like English would be the most effective language. I've never had actually anyone ask me for coaching in Spanish.
It's funny you
So
say that, the whole language thing.
yeah.
And a lot of people notice one thing about me. When I speak English, I'm quite
Mhm.
professional. I
Mhm.
mean, I throw F-bombs all over the place, but I'm professional. And then when I speak in Spanish, I'm very comical.
Mhm.
Very hard to have people take me seriously in
Yeah.
Spanish. Did TV interviews,
Uh-huh.
have been on CNN Español several times, and I'm like, I'm a joke in Spanish, like, and
Mhm.
I'm completely bilingual. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm very comical in Spanish. I'm not as
Mhm.
comical in English.
Yeah.
So I'm glad we spoke about that because I'm going,
Yeah.
oh, I'm not the only one. Hold on a second.
Yeah, I think, so in my previous job, I did a lot of interviews in Spanish, radio and TV.
Right.
And I'm fine. Like, I'm very comfortable doing all that in Spanish. But I think when it comes to being really personal and not like not so factual about things, or
Right.
like very professional, like just very, very personal and very authentic. I'll be honest, I just feel more comfortable in English.
I
Um,
I
but
totally
if
agree.
somebody came to me and is bilingual and they really want to do it in Spanish, I would be more than willing to do it in Spanish. A lot of my materials that I have from my coaching certification that I use with my clients sometimes, a lot of it is in Spanish as well.
Now, I know you mentioned this before, but give us
Mhm.
a rundown. Where can we find you to inquire about your services? I want your email. I want your social media. If I could, I'd have your address and I'd knock on your door to talk to you later on.
Yeah. So my email is my website is everydaydaniela.com, and that's Daniela with one L. And then my email is everydaydaniela.com. My Instagram that I'm pretty active on is at Everyday Daniela Coaching. And like I said, I also have the online community on Facebook, and that group is called Change Becomes Her.
And that's a public group or is it a private group?
It's searchable.
Okay.
And then so you can request to join. Yeah. So it's private in the sense that I monitor who is joining, because I don't want just random people or bots
Exactly.
joining.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
going to be requesting right after the show.
Yeah, I'd love to have you join.
Thank you so much for joining us today. This was an amazing talk. I'm sure that after we finish, I'll keep talking to you. To everyone listening, thank you for tuning in. And remember to follow at Julixa Media on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, just anywhere you can follow Julixa Media. Thank you, Daniela.
Thank you so much, Julixa.
Bye.